Part 160. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhenshen. Chapter 1591. Even very outstanding professional players cannot judge the current situation faced by the informant. After all, Xiaoming is the only one who can participate in the system war with a level 3 player character. Other players do not have this experience at all, so they are naturally powerless. In fact, the system takes into account that the player may be short of troops. So in the previous mission, Bai Yulin gave the informant 250 level 4 skeleton cavalry as a reward. The intention is nothing more than to allow players to have the capital to participate in this war. 250 level 4 skeleton cavalry are not enough for the midterm siege. But if they are used to perform harassment and reconnaissance in the early stage of the war, or the finishing work in the later stage, they are all quite outstanding forces. If the tactical command is proper, a good report card can be handed in. Of course, the system will not let players take advantage at will. In the midterm siege, players must contribute. How to get through is the most challenging part for players' skills. What Xiaoming never expected was that he was reluctant to waste these skeleton cavalry. It's just an attack on a small port city. We can do it by ourselves. Xiaoming did not mobilize his own private armed forces, nor did he borrow the regular army of Grey Bone City, and he did not even leave Bai Yulin's side. 8-7 shadow clones appeared out of thin air and accelerated directly towards Gabes. Seeing this scene, all the officials and generals of Grey Bone City felt incredible. Fortunately, they were all undead and were naturally not surprised. If it were a human, they would have been arguing endlessly. So Bai Yulin asked on behalf of everyone, "Brother reporter, what's going on?" "Don't worry, brother city lord, this is my special ability, 7-star shadow clone. They are enough to complete the tasks assigned by Big Brother. We will know when the time comes." Really, Bai Yulin stared at reporter for a long time with the eye sockets without flesh eyes on his skull, and then said, "Okay. Brother is waiting to see what you can do." In his eyes, reporter is just a third level 30 skeleton mage, and the 8 clones, judging from the game data, are also third level 30 skeleton mages. Although the trick played by reporter is quite unique, what use can such a force have? But since the player has decided so, the NPC will not interfere too much. Not to mention the race of the undead, which does not have many emotional fluctuations. The slight dissatisfaction in Bai Yulin's tone just now is because he has a good relationship with reporter, and he took this as a reminder. Do your best. Xiaoming certainly knew Bai Yulin's good intentions, and it was difficult to explain. The key is that it is not clear to explain, and it is more convenient to see the effect directly. The 8 7-star shadow clones are only level 3 skeleton mages on the surface, but in fact they are 8 natural devil fruit ability users. After leaving the Grey Bone City, they pulled away and turned into smoke, sand, lightning, flashes, rolling towards Gabes. Not only are they all a level 7 or above, they also have the bonus of natural special abilities and Xiaoming's inexhaustible energy. A small orc city can't produce enough power to fight even one clone. The reason why Xiaoming sent 8 clones is mainly because he is afraid that if there are too few clones, he will not be able to take care of the overall situation, but let the orcs escape. Now there are 8 clones, which can directly surround Gabes. The clones encountered Gabe's patrol troops several times along the way, hundreds of orcs, wolf cavalry, half-orcs, ogres, and even a few level 5 eagles appeared later. Although the system told these orcs that the smoke and sand in front of them were enemies. But their eyes and experience told them that the enemy was a big-headed ghost. This horse was a natural disaster. Who dared to resist? Even the orcs, who were unruly and would fight if they didn't obey, did not dare to fight against the natural disaster. Except for a few brainless guys who rushed into the wind and sand and disappeared, the other orcs, led by the leader, turned around and ran all the way back to Gabes. Within a day, these supernatural phenomena surrounded the small city of Gabes. Even the part of the city east of the sea was shrouded in smoke and sand. The devil fruit certified by the reincarnation space is good, and there is no characteristic that it will be abolished when it comes into contact with the sea. Otherwise, Xiaoming would have to find another way to intercept it at sea. The orcs are indeed very tough. Even if they face angels and demons, they have the courage to fight, but this is the first time that the orcs face this kind of natural disaster, and they are indeed a little at a loss. It may be better in the future after getting used to it. This is also the preferential treatment given by the system to players with special abilities. When players use this ability in the game, they must consume their own supernatural energy. This energy will be collected by the system mastermind Nine-Tailed Fox and used to feed other optical brains. So the system is willing to give players some benefits for this. Most of the orcs in the city were scared out of their wits. The few soldiers who still had the courage to fight were guarding on the city walls, ready to fight the enemy. From time to time, there were orcs who could not bear this psychological pressure, howling, raising their weapons and rushing into the smoke and sand, never to return. As a city by the sea, Gabe certainly has shipyards and ships. It's just that the orcs are not well developed in navigation, and only a small number of fishing boats of the tribe are moored in the port. There are some small and medium-sized merchant ships from across the Mediterranean Europe, which can carry a lot of people. At the beginning, some orc leaders urgently discussed with the owners of these ships whether they could take their ships to escape. However, the price has not been negotiated yet. Those natural disasters have blocked the sea surface. Now it's good, there is no need to negotiate. No ship dares to sail into the fog on the sea. Not to mention the sandstorm on the sea. Whether it is the orcs in Gabe City or other races who come to do business, they are all confused now. The city is in chaos, and the leaders of all parties are arguing non-stop, but they can't think of any solution. The strongest NPC in the city is only level 5, and there is nothing he can do about it. Bai Yulan, the Lord of Greybone City, is also confused. Because the system told him that the early battle of Greybone City's crusade against Gabes has ended, and Gabes is surrounded by the Greybone City army. Next, it will officially enter the siege stage. There is no doubt that the task of informing the dead has also been perfectly completed. The adventure level and strategic level have also increased by 5 levels. In addition, 504th level skeleton cavalry will be awarded to the death reporter. Xiaoming saw that the death reporter's adventure level was already level 35. After 5 more levels, he can accept the promotion mission. I think in this war, the death reporter should become a 4th level character. I am looking forward to it. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhenshen. Chapter 1592. Unlike Xiaoming's expectations, the Lord of Greybone City, Bai Yulan, and his officers and generals are now completely confused. These high-level NPCs collectively received a system prompt: the war between the undead Greybone City and the Beast Gabes has entered the siege stage. What's going on? The war has just started for a few hours, and the regular army of Greybone City is still preparing to set off, with only a small number of scouts sent out. As a result, God, the game system, told them that the war has entered the midterm siege stage. Is it so fast? In theory, the course of the war should be like this. Because they belong to different races and different forces. Greybone City and Gabe City are neighbors, so there have been a large number of scouts and patrols in the area between the two sides. So the first stage of the war should be to clear the enemy scouts and patrols on the battlefield and block the enemy's intelligence. And Gabe City will soon find that a large number of scouts have not returned, and will immediately know that the situation is not good. Therefore, a larger force will be dispatched, and at the same time, the undead will also dispatch more troops, and the two sides will start outpost battles. Test each other's strength. This is the second stage. If the beasts feel that their weakness is obvious, they will defend Gabes to the death. After all, the attack of the undead comes from the inland and cannot block the sea. Gabes can get a steady supply from the sea. The advantage of defending the city is great. If the beasts feel that they are actually quite strong, they will send a large army to fight the undead in the field. If the field battle is victorious, everything will be fine. Only when the field battle is unfavorable will it turn to the attack and defense of the city. Only then will it be the third stage of the war. The attack and defense of the city will generally last for a long time. It is hard to say whether the undead can capture Gabes. In fact, Bayulan only has a 60% chance of winning this point. But in order to obtain an outlet to the sea, only a 60% chance of winning is also a gamble. Otherwise, the Grey Bone City will be trapped in the desert, and it will be difficult to develop quickly. Even if they fail to defeat the orcs this time, they will still suffer heavy losses. More importantly, they will make other races that do business with the orcs feel unsafe and give up here. In this way, Gabes will continue to decline. It will be beneficial for the Grey Bone City to attack here again in the future. In fact, the development plan that the undead originally formulated for the Grey Bone City was not like this. The coastal cities in the north are not easy to attack, and it is not easy to defend after they are defeated. Maybe they will suffer strong retaliation for this. Therefore, the undead hope that the Grey Bone City will develop towards the desert in the south, give full play to the advantages of the undead that they are not afraid of wind and sand, and will not die easily, and drive out all other races in the desert. In this way, the undead will have a relatively good base and sufficient strategic depth, so that they can really stand firm. Then consider which direction to continue to develop. The undead senior leaders are geniuses, and this strategy is very consistent with the characteristics of the undead. In this case, why did Bayulan decide to march to the north? He also has his own considerations. After all, Grey Bone City is too close to Gabes. Gabes has the advantage of the ocean. Once it develops, it will develop very quickly. When Grey Bone City goes to war with the orcs in the south, Gabes is likely to be ready to attack its back. Grey Bone City will be attacked from both sides, which is too dangerous. So Bayulan had to eliminate the threat from the north first. It is not necessary to occupy Gabes. As long as it causes enough damage, the orcs will regard it as a chicken rib and give up developing this place. That's enough. As for whether we should take it down and when to take it down, it depends on the situation in the future. This is the general plan agreed upon by Bayulan and his subordinates. I never expected that the plan could not keep up with the speed of change. The dead player, who is not even at level 4, has brought such a big change to the war by himself. It only took him a few hours to get through the first and second stages at once, and directly dragged the war into the city's attack and defense stage. It's unbelievable, but I have to believe it. After all, God, the game system, will not deceive NPCs. Bayulan also immediately played the role of a key NPC and immediately issued the 5th ring task to Xiaoming, Gabe's Siege War. This is a purple master level task. As the name suggests, it requires the player to lead his troops to attack Gabe's city. This task has no time limit and no preset target. After the siege is over, the corresponding rewards will be issued according to the size of the player's merit. Of course, if the war fails, the reward will definitely not be as much as when the war is won. According to the rules of the game, even if the players at this stage participate in a war that is bound to fail, they can also get rewards by completing tasks and making meritorious contributions. The situation will only change if the player gets the status of a leader or senior leader of a faction. At that time, only if the war is won can the player benefit. At this stage, players usually do not play a big role in the war between system forces. The outcome of the war is often decided long ago. Unless something unexpected happens. For example, in one camp, there is a player like Xiaoming who is not high in rank but super powerful. The Death Announcer in Greybone City had just accepted the 5th Ring mission, and the 8-7 Shadow clones on the front line immediately began to attack Gabes. Facing Gabes, Xiaoming immediately thought of Manila in Southeast Asia, which was occupied by divers. At that time, Manila was just a small village. The divers used the Martian virus to poison the pirates in the whole village and occupied the place. This trick works just as well in Gabes. Even because Xiaoming took the poison fruit, he can now mix more powerful poisons. However, as a civil servant of the underworld, he can't do this. Because the residents in Manila at that time were all pirates who deserved to die. It doesn't matter if they are poisoned to death. But the residents of Gabes are orcs. Although everyone is on the opposite side of the war, they have no reason to die. All beings are equal. Even if they are just game NPCs. Moreover, Xiaoming now feels more and more that there are similarities between souls and intelligent programs. Many intelligent programs have been accepted by Quafu's underworld after death. In the real world, the souls of humans and other creatures seem to be regarded as a more sophisticated and advanced intelligent program. And the scope of what the underworld is willing to accept is not only souls of the human level, but also some sufficiently complex intelligent programs that have been recognized by soul gems. Perhaps, there is no essential difference between the so-called real world and the virtual game world. It's just that the rules and energy levels are different. In the past, Xiaoming only recognized the souls in the real world, because he was born on Pangustar and was only familiar with this kind of soul. Now he is gradually understanding other kinds of souls. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 1593. There is a small problem here. Almost all souls in the real world are recognized by soul gems. But the intelligent programs in the virtual world are not like this. Some programs are recognized, but many are not. Generally speaking, the more complex and advanced the intelligent program is, the easier it is to be recognized as a soul by the underworld. As long as it is recognized, it cannot be harmed at will. However, at first glance, Xiaoming really can't tell the difference. Since he can't tell the difference, he can only respect them all as souls. He can't treat NPCs as stones on the roadside like ordinary players and kill them at will. That will damage his merits as the king of hell. Therefore, all NPCs in Gabes City cannot be killed easily. Those orcs who had rushed into the smoke and sand and never returned before did not die. Instead, they were captured. So how should he deal with the orcs in Gabes City? Xiaoming had already thought of a countermeasure. There is no other way, just use poison. He had been in the Harry Potter series for nearly 8 years before. With such a long time, Xiaoming naturally made some developments for the poison fruit. Weakness virus 4.3 beta, it can make the poisoned person weak for a period of time, but it will never be fatal. Creatures on the verge of death will be immune to this virus. Creatures that have been poisoned, if they are in a dying state, will automatically remove the poison and will no longer be weakened by the virus. Xiaoming made such a complicated setting just to prevent the poisoned from dying inadvertently. That would increase his sins. Even if the deceased deserved to die, it would not work. As a civil servant in the underworld, if you know that a person should die, killing him will be a merit. If you don't know whether a person should die or not, but you kill him accidentally, it will lose merit. According to legend, there is a couplet in front of the King of Hell's palace. The first couplet is, if you do good intentionally, you will not be rewarded even if it is good. The second couplet is, if you do evil unintentionally, you will not be punished even if it is evil. The meaning of this couplet is, if a person deliberately and purposefully does good things, even if he does good things, he should not be encouraged or rewarded. And if a person does bad things unintentionally, It is not his own intention, and he should not be punished even if he does bad things. In the real world, such rules do not apply. Because it is almost impossible to judge whether a person is intentional or unintentional. Who can't lie? Only the underworld can judge. The soul gem always tests the true thoughts deep in a person's soul. All his excuses and evasions in the real world are useless. The soul gem cannot be deceived. Even the king of hell has to abide by the rules of the underworld. Therefore, Xiaoming will modify the settings of the weak virus many times to avoid accidentally hurting innocent lives. This virus is still not the final version. As Xiaoming's ability becomes stronger and stronger, his weak virus will also become stronger and more accurate. I believe someone will find the bug. Is it okay if you just don't kill? Won't Xiaoming's behavior cause other consequences? You've heard of the butterfly effect. Take the war between Grey Bone City and Gabes. Xiaoming participated in the war as a whistleblower. It changed the balance of power and the offensive and defensive situation between the undead and the orcs. It will cause many complex chain reactions. Even if no one died in the war, people may die in the future. For example, if the orcs in Gabes are not killed, they will probably be sent back to the territory of the orcs. They lost their homes and property and returned to the orcs as losers. Maybe some of the poor and weak orcs will starve to death. In this case, does Xiaoming really have no responsibility? Of course there is responsibility. If this happens, although Xiaoming does not need to bear all the responsibility, there will always be some joint responsibility. Therefore, it is very difficult for civil servants in the underworld in the initial stage. If you are not careful, you will cause some unpredictable consequences and increase your sins. Therefore, as long as the civil servants of the underworld successfully pass the primary stage, they will try not to interfere with the affairs of the real world. Just do their own work. At present, Xiaoming has not passed the initial stage. He can't understand this level for the time being. He can only experience it little by little and make progress little by little. It is emphasized that the soul gem only has such high requirements for civil servants in the underworld. Ordinary people don't need to consider such complicated and cumbersome things. Putting aside the operation mode of the underworld, Xiaoming released Weakness Virus 4.3 Beta to Gabe City. With active energy as a foundation, he can continuously release the Weakness Virus. Until every creature in Gabe City is infected, everyone falls to the ground weakly. This is also the first time that Xiaoming has used the Weakness Virus on a large scale, and many accidents have occurred during the period. Fortunately, there is no danger. No one died because of it. The Weakness Virus actually breaks out little by little, and the poisoned people also become weak little by little. They have enough time to find a better place to lie down. But with tens of thousands of NPCs in the city, there would always be some problems. Several orc soldiers were accidentally stabbed by their own weapons when they fell to the ground. The few who were slightly injured were not a big deal, but one seriously injured soldier injured his artery and bled profusely, and he almost died. When he was about to die, the effect of the virus was lifted in time. He took the time to treat himself. As a soldier, each orc carried some healing items. No one stopped him from healing himself, so he finally survived. But not long after his injury healed, this guy was infected with the virus again and became weak. After all, the virus released by Xiaoming was all over the city. He had nowhere to hide. He would not have antibodies because he had been infected before, so he had to be infected. There was a half-elf NPC girl in the inn in the city. She fell into the bathtub halfway through her bath and was almost choked to death by her own bath water. Fortunately, the effect of the virus was lifted and she climbed out in time. There are many such examples. Not only the higher orcs, elves, humans, and other intelligent races will be poisoned. The animals in the city did not escape this disaster. Unexpectedly, the performance of the animal NPCs was much better than that of the intelligent races. Their sixth sense was relatively strong, and they vaguely felt the characteristics of the virus. They all found a suitable place to lie down obediently, but none of them almost killed themselves. It can be seen that animals are much more adaptable than humans. Putting aside these unexpected situations, when the virus caused most people in Gabes to fall to the ground, the system prompted the players and related NPCs to complete the fifth ring mission Gabes Siege. Gabes changed hands. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 1594. Congratulations to the player, the dead, for completing the fifth ring task Gabes Siege of the task chain Greybone City's Road to the Sea. Please check your rewards. First, the standard rewards. The dead's strategic level at 5 levels, reaching level 25 of level 2, the adventure level is also at 5 levels, reaching the maximum level of level 3, level 40. According to the current situation of the dead, the system decided to merge the promotion task of the 4th level with the 6th ring task Resist the Counterattack. As long as the dead complete the 6th ring task, he can become a 4th level player. Resist the Counterattack, Purple Master level task. The time is 7 days or until the orcs give up the counterattack. During these 7 days, the dead need to help the undead defend the city of Gabes. Next, there are rewards for military strength. Originally, the dead was the branch president of the White Fang Chamber of Commerce in the Greybone City branch, and could form a guard team of 100-500 undead. Now that the scale has been expanded, Bai Yulin allows the branch to have a 1000-5000 guard squadron. This kind of task is not friendly to retail players. After all, raising such a large army, let alone recruiting soldiers, even the daily consumption and supplies are an astronomical figure. It is unaffordable. If it is a player guild, it is relatively simple. Just distribute it to 100 or so players, and it will be full. Who doesn't have to raise some soldiers? For the dead, it is a piece of cake. First of all, the dead is very rich. Secondly, he doesn't have to spend money to recruit soldiers. Finally, the supplies of the undead soldiers are mainly the breath of death. Other players have to rely on spending money or fighting to supplement, but Xiaoming can directly create it. It's so easy. Counting the 2 batches of 754th level skeleton cavalrymen rewarded before, plus the original 250 low-level undead soldiers of the Chamber of Commerce, the team has actually reached the minimum strength of the guard squadron. Of course, with the success of the mission, Bai Yulin continued to expand the troops under the dead. Allocate 500 4th level flying skeleton soldiers to him. Flying soldiers have always been the favorite of all races and have great strategic significance. The value is comparable to 1000 skeleton cavalry of the same level. If it weren't for the great contribution of the deceased, Bai Yulin might not be willing to give him so many high-level and powerful soldiers. It really cost a lot of money. This is also a form of hiding soldiers among the people. After all, the regular army force that the system officially allows any city to maintain is always limited. What to do after reaching the upper limit? The best way is to disperse it into civilian organizations. Therefore, each city needs some affiliated powerful forces. Although these forces are not fully controlled by the city lord, generally speaking, they can still be called upon when encountering foreign enemies. Of course, the existence of powerful forces will also become an unstable factor. There are many political games and compromises in the middle. This is also a step for players to get promoted. Therefore, powerful forces like the deceased, who are basically in the same mind as the city lord Bai Yulin, are the favorites of every city lord. It is reasonable to spend some money to win them over. In fact, the rewards given to the deceased for his merits in the fifth ring mission are not enough, and there are still many surpluses. This is also true for the previous ring missions. The system will not forget these merits, and they are all recorded in the account. When the entire task chain is completed, all the merits will be exchanged for various rewards. Previously, Xiaoming completed the 4th and 5th ring missions in a few hours. Unfortunately, the 6th ring mission cannot be completed so quickly. After all, the decision is not in his hands. It depends on when the orcs plan to counterattack or when to give up. They probably don't even know that Gabes has fallen. Brother Bai, I captured a lot of prisoners in Gabes. In addition to the residents and soldiers of the orcs, there are also some merchants and immigrants of other races. How do you think we should deal with it? This matter is too troublesome. Xiaoming wants to push it to the NPC, but he has to ask first. If Bai Yulan plans to execute them all, it will be troublesome. Fortunately, Bai Yulan is both the city lord and the vice president of the Chamber of Commerce. He knows the skills of negotiation and compromise. Unlike some undead leaders who only know how to kill. He told the dead. These captives must be treated well. They cannot be harmed, let alone starve to death. The orc captives will be an important bargaining chip in the negotiations. In order to peacefully exchange back this part of the living force, the orcs are likely to be willing to hand over the city of Gabes as a ransom. The orcs are not well developed in the field of navigation. After all, the orcs on the African continent have split into many tribes and are constantly fighting each other. They are temporarily powerless against the sea. The orcs like port cities mainly because foreign merchants will bring all kinds of goods that orcs like. There is no plan to use this as a springboard to march to the ocean. The undead side of the Grey Bone City took over the city of Gabes without bloodshed, which is shocking enough in itself. Returning these orc captives should be able to prevent the orcs from counterattacking. After hearing what Brother Bai said, Xiaoming was relieved. At the same time, Bai Yulan also quickly sent a large number of high-speed troops to Gabes City to receive the city and prisoners. Even the fastest troops did not arrive in Gabes until noon the next day, November 4th. At this time, the virus in the city had long dissipated, leaving only a group of weak orcs. Considering that they would not starve to death if they did not eat for a day, Xiaoming only provided food to some old, weak, and disabled people yesterday, and did not care about other prisoners at all. Now they can all be handed over to the undead army. In the next few days, the army and important generals of Grey Bone City came to Gabes one after another and took over all the work in the city. This also included diplomatic work with the orcs, but this matter did not bother the dead man anymore, he only had to be responsible for defending the city. Some credit should be given to other undead. The toxicity of those guys who were infected with the weakness virus gradually dissipated. The effect of this poison cannot last forever, and it will be automatically removed in about a few days. If necessary, Xiaoming can also provide the antidote himself. But there is no such need this time. As for the 8 7-star shadow clones, they all returned to normal long before the first batch of undead troops arrived. Now there are no enemies that can fight within 100 miles, so there is no need to waste energy to maintain the state of the elements. On November 9th, the 6th day after the dead man captured Gabes, the system sent good news. The orcs recognized the undead's rule over Gabes, and Bai Yulan also released all the captives. The 6th ring defend against counterattack mission is officially completed. Xiaoming thought that this mission chain Grey Bone City's road to the sea should also be completed. But it was not. It seems that Grey Bone City's road to the sea is not achieved by having a port and a few fishing boats. The system obviously has higher requirements. It's just that the next ring of tasks has not been issued to the informer of the dead yet. Xiaoming estimated that the next one would probably be a non-war mission, and the players who could accept it would not only be the informer of the dead. The system also needs to be fair and give other players time to catch up. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhenshen. Chapter 1595. Character Name, The Dead. Racial Talent, Bone Body. Bone Body is a passive talent with a 50% chance of making small ranged physical attacks miss. This means that ranged attacks such as bows and arrows are likely to pass through the gaps in the bones, so that they cannot cause damage to the player. Why do we emphasize small? Because large ranged weapons, such as catapults and cannons, cannot be dodged. There are not that many gaps in the bones. Combat Profession, Necromancer/Intermediate Skeleton Specialized Mage, Level 4. Second Combat Profession, Level 1 Full-Time Hunter. Life Profession 1, Primary Undead Corruptor, Life Profession 2, Primary Undead Overseer. Affiliation, White Fang Chamber of Commerce of the Undead Clan, Greybone City Branch, Branch President. Level, Level 4, Level 0, Maximum Level 50. 34 mercenaries can be deployed. 5 attributes, Strength 44, Constitution 44, Agility 59, Intelligence 66, Spirit 66. When the character is not wearing equipment, Physical Attack 44, Physical Defense 51.5, Physical Damage 40, Magic Attack 132, Magic Defense 66, Magic 60. Life 440, Strength 440, Mana 825, Death Breath 6000, Telekinesis 100. In fact, for normal undead wizards, the growth rate of strength, constitution, and agility will be relatively low. The reason why the Dead Teller has such high attributes is that he has been blessed by the Holy Land of the Skeleton Clan Skullpool and has become an intermediate skeleton specialized wizard. Since he is proficient enough in skeletons, it is reasonable to have stronger physical attributes, right? The Dead Teller can hire 34 mercenaries. The system stipulates that 1/4 of them are mercenaries of levels 1-4. About 8-9 of each level are available. The mount system is officially opened. And the rank of the mount is bound to the player's character. For example, the Bone Dragon mount rewarded by the previous task has now also been upgraded to level 4. To be honest, it just looks a bit more ferocious. As for the change in its combat power, it is almost the same for Xiao Ming. I won't mention the equipment. Because after Xiao Ming became stronger, he had no interest in updating his equipment. It was a waste of time and money, and it was useless. So he just didn't do it. All the free attribute points of the upgrade reward were piled up by Xiao Ming on agility. The other attributes are no longer useful. Agility can speed up the speed of the Dead Teller, which is better than nothing. The changes of the Dead Teller's adventure profession are roughly like this. Compared with the 3rd level and 0 level, each attribute has almost doubled. But in terms of real combat power, there is actually no change. Whether the Dead Teller is 3rd level or 4th level, it is just a drop in the bucket compared to the strength brought by Xiao Ming personally. On the other hand, in the eyes of the game system, there is a big difference. The system opened up the permissions of 4th level players to him, including 4th level mercenaries, 4th level professional skills, 4th level equipment. The most important thing is that when the system issues tasks, it attaches great importance to the player's rank. It is one of the main prerequisites. No matter how strong Xiao Ming is, the system will not issue tasks beyond his authority. Now the Informer of the Dead has finally made a step forward. Promotion is only one of the rewards for the Informer of the Dead to complete the 6th ring task. There will naturally be rewards for military strength. Although the 6th ring task, the Informer of the Dead seemed to have done nothing. However, the reason why the orcs gave up the counterattack and allowed the undead to occupy their own city. The credit mainly lies with him. It was he who took down Gabes without bloodshed and captured all the orcs in the city. The deterrent power of this behavior is too strong. Bai Yulan deliberately released a group of orc captives first and let them spread the news back, causing the orcs to be suspicious, so they would easily admit defeat. They felt that they had to find out the truth first. Otherwise, the orcs have always been brave and unmatched. Even if they knew they were defeated, they would fight bravely. How could they give up a city so easily? Do you think the credit of the informer of the dead is great? Therefore, the system's reward for the dead is also extremely awesome, 300 4th level bone dragons. Although it is only a 4th level bone dragon, and there are only 300 of them, the value of this unit is greater than that of the 500 flying skeleton soldiers. Bone dragons are one of the ultimate arms of the undead race, and their potential is very huge. Compared with the same rank, the combat effectiveness of 300 bone dragons is also higher than that of 500 flying skeleton soldiers. More importantly, compared with flying skeleton soldiers, bone dragons are easier to train and upgrade to become a 5th level and 6th level or higher army. To be honest, even in the regular army of Grey Bone City, there are only more than 200 bone dragons. Bai Yulin, as the vice president of the White Fang Chamber of Commerce, has 500 bone dragons in his private armed forces. But he certainly couldn't bear to give 300 of them to the dead. Therefore, the reward of these 300 bone dragons actually comes from the system. It was allocated from the top of the undead race. Xiaoming was so happy after his promotion that he didn't notice that Bai Yulin was salivating over these bone dragons. Otherwise, he would have exchanged the bone dragons with Bai Yulin. He would have guaranteed that the other party's favorability would soar, and maybe Bai Yulin would have sworn brotherhood with the deceased. In fact, Bai Yulin himself was wrong. He made a mistake by not asking for it. More importantly, Bai Yulin was a member of the undead clan, and Xiaoming was not very good at judging the undead clan's thoughts. If it had been a human, or an elf-orc, Xiaoming would have sensed his thoughts long ago. The undead clan was more, not showing their emotions on their faces. After waiting for a while, seeing that the informer of the dead had no intention of offering the bone dragon, Bai Yulin announced the third reward, General or Admiral. In view of the outstanding performance of the informer of the dead, the undead forces represented by Bai Yulin can give him a military position as a reward. Xiaoming has long known the power of the Admiral of the Navy. The Admiral can lead a large army far larger than a private army to fight a naval battle, which is a revolutionary improvement in combat effectiveness. However, the player must make a choice, whether to be an admiral and take the naval battle route, or to be a general and take the land battle route. In the future, there may be a chance to combine the two and become an all-powerful commander of the sea and land. But at this stage, players can only choose one direction. You can't take advantage of both ends. Xiaoming stroked his chin and began to ponder. His other two characters, the researcher and the diver, are both admirals of the Navy, and the explorer took the Liangshan path and became the deputy general of the army. From the perspective of balance, perhaps the informer of the dead should also be a general on land. It happened that he was playing in North America on the strategic map. The army is more useful. However, the ocean is the eternal theme, and the development on land is limited. Is it okay to limit the dead to the land? Besides, because of the shipwreck site, he can easily get large ships, which is quite advantageous on the sea, but not so competitive on land. Xiaoming thought about it for half a minute, flipped a coin, and decided to be a general on land. In fact, whether it is a general or an admiral, for Xiaoming, there is not much difference. His combat effectiveness is always in himself, and the troops under his command are just assisting. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 1596. Primary Army Deputy General Skin, Level 1/10. Can command an army unit with 5 command arrows. Owner Land Strategic Attack add 1, Land Strategic Defense add 1, Road Mobility add 10%, Command add 100. The attributes of this skin can be described as standard, without any surprises or accidents. Xiao Ming still fantasizes that the deputy general skin from the regular army can be different. It seems that he thinks too much. Even if there may be differences, it is not now, but in the future when the player is at a higher level. At this stage, the system does not need to distinguish the difference. Xiao Ming casually strengthened this skin 5 times, and the level cap was raised to level 50. Strengthening is definitely a good thing from a long-term perspective. After all, others can only upgrade the Deputy General skin to level 10. That is just an increase of 10 points of attack and defense, 1000 points of command, and 100% of action. There are indeed advantages, but they are not obvious. You still need to get more and more advanced skins to reflect the difference. But the Dead Teller is different. Even if it is just a Deputy General skin, as long as its level is upgraded to the top, the strategic attack and defense alone will be 80 points higher than other players. The extra 4000 points of command can lead 1000 more level 3 soldiers, and the extra 400% action power can also allow the Dead Teller to do more things on the strategic map. Of course, that will be a long time in the future. After all, it is definitely not that easy to upgrade the skin to level 50. It may take 3 to 5 years to reach the full level. By then, haha, I don't know if anyone will still play this game. The ordinary player group will definitely not stick to this game. After playing for a while, many people may not play it once the novelty wears off. There are even players who have quit the game now. Of course, at this stage, there are more new players. In a few years, even if some players continue to play, they will be intermittent. But the feature of the Magic Planet game is that all kinds of skills are real and can be used in reality. Most players who really understand this will probably not give up. The military of the New Han Kingdom, which knew this from the beginning, and the major forces will never withdraw. Therefore, this game can still guarantee that a certain number of players will always exist. These players are also high-quality customers of major game guilds. Therefore, many game guilds will continue to stay in the game. In the future, Xiao Ming will not have to worry about the night march of Jinyi. Next, the system rewarded the deceased with 1 million gold coins and various strategic resources. It is the final ending. This is a reward that any player and guild are salivating for. In Xiao Ming's eyes, it is just a number. After a long-term accumulation over the past few months, his current wealth is really amazing. The gold coins have exceeded the 50 million mark and are heading straight for the small goal of 100 million. Sulfur, crystal, and other special resources are also nearly 1,000, and wood and stone are more than 2,000. These achievements have almost nothing to do with Xiao Ming's personal efforts. In fact, it is all the credit of Xiao Er and his 4 intelligent programs. Xiao Ming is a person who goes with the flow. When he sees that there is enough money and resources, he will not be so diligent in picking up and managing the household. Sometimes he is too lazy to pick up various resources on the map. But the intelligent programs will not. As long as they think the cost effectiveness is appropriate, they will put the gold coins and resources into their pockets. Day after day, month after month, such a strategic reserve has been built. In addition, the intelligent programs are really masters of business. They see the opportunity and spare no effort to buy and sell between several races and multiple cities, which makes Xiao Ming's wallet expand rapidly. Now there is almost no need to worry about money. It's just that this money seems to be a bit difficult to spend. It really fits the joke, if you don't seize the time to spend it, you can't spend it all. In this case, then find a way to shopping. The first place to spend is to buy equipment, props, mercenaries, etc. for the 4th level of the Necromancer. But these things are really useless to Xiao Ming. Even if the intelligent program may be useful when he is not around, it is not worth it for Xiao Ming to buy them in person. Xiao Wu'er can buy it by himself. He can even compare prices from 3 different stores and buy the most suitable one. It is much better than Xiaoming shopping in person. Why bother with this trouble? Similarly, Xiaoming does not need to worry about buying 4th level mercenaries. So there is only one final option left, which is to go abroad to shop and shop in Europe. After occupying Gabes, the deceased can already go out to sea by ship, and you can choose anywhere along the Mediterranean coast. Xiaoming suddenly had a flash of inspiration in his mind, and thought of a place he must go to, Athens. The largest temple dedicated to the goddess Athena in the world, Parthenon, is located in Athens. Xiaoming has always felt that if he wants to start the profession of Saint Xiya in the main game, he must go to the Parthenon to obtain the consent of the goddess Athena. Otherwise, Xiaoming's several characters, as well as Li Huamei, Richard, and other NPCs who have cultivated the small universe, have never been able to officially take up the profession of Saint Xiya. It doesn't matter to Xiaoming, but it will definitely make a big difference to the NPCs. So it is necessary to go to Athens. Besides, there is a temple of Poseidon in Athens, and maybe you can open another sea warrior profession. However, there are 2 temples of Poseidon in Europe. The other temple is located in Paestum, Italy. It is hard to say which one is effective. Maybe it is not necessary at all. As long as Xiaoming gets the response of the goddess Athena, not only the Saint Xiya will be opened, but also the Sea Warrior, God Warrior, and Hades Warrior. Or, if you go to the Temple of Athena, you can only open the Saint Xiya profession. For other warrior professions, you need to go to their corresponding temples. There are 2 temples for Poseidon, the Sea King, and they may both be effective, or only one may be effective. It may even require players to visit both temples in succession. The details are still unknown. In addition, the corresponding god warrior is Odin, the king of the Norse gods, and the corresponding Hades warrior is Hades. Xiaoming does not know where the temple dedicated to them is. So he plans to go to Athens to see the situation first. Originally, Xiaoming planned to let the researcher be responsible for opening the Saint Xiya profession. He is driving a ship from North America to Europe on the strategic map. Xiaoming had always thought that the researcher would arrive in Europe first and then go to Athens. Now it seems that the researcher's speed is definitely not as fast as the informant. Of course, it doesn't matter who arrives in Athens first. Xiaoming has the ability of space. As long as one character arrives, the other characters can be teleported. It is equivalent to everyone arriving. After all, the informant is a necromancer and may not meet the conditions for opening the Saint Xiya profession. It's okay for him to visit Hades. When he visits Athena for the first time, Xiaoming must change to another character. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhenshen. Chapter 1597. There are now 2 Allens under Xiaoming's several characters. One is the researcher's guard, Alan Hongyi, an elf from Donjon City. The other is Alan, a half-elf merchant from Greece, who was just a subordinate of the deceased last month. To be more precise, he should actually belong to the Eastern Roman Empire. In this era, the whole of Greece was under the rule of the Eastern Roman Empire. The capital of the empire is located in Constantinople, and it believes in Eastern Orthodoxy. The core area is located in the Balkan Peninsula in southeastern Europe, and occupies most of the Anatolian Peninsula. In the 6th century AD, after the Hellenistic reforms of the Emperor Flavius Heraclius, the country's culture and language were mostly Greek. Even because the predecessor of its capital Constantinople was the ancient Greek colony of Byzantium. Later historians gave the Eastern Roman Empire another name, the Byzantine Empire. In the magic game, the main residents of the Byzantine Empire are half-elves. There are also many elves and humans, and there are also some minority races. Greeks are generally half-elves. They are considered superior people in the empire and are respected by people from all walks of life. Alan is an NPC character controlled by the intelligent program of Xiaoming's clone. When he met the character of the accuser last month, he was recruited by Xiaoming as a subordinate. In name, Alan has left Gabe's and returned to Greece to purchase goods. In fact, he is now waiting for further instructions from the accuser on a nearby island with a dozen of his men and sailors. Now Xiaoming plans to take Alan's favorable ship and go to Athens, Greece. Of course, he must go back in glory. The accuser sold Alan's original small merchant ship and handed over 5 medium-sized merchant ships full of goods to Alan. He was very happy. Considering that there were only a dozen men and sailors before, it was definitely not enough. Alan went to Gabe's again and hired more than 130 sailors to meet the requirements of running these ships more easily. In theory, it is a more troublesome thing to hire a large number of sailors at one time in a port city, but this time the hiring work is indeed unprecedentedly simple. Because Gabe's city was occupied by the undead from Greybone City. When the orcs controlled this place before, the half-elves from Europe dared to come here to do business. But when it came to the undead, many people backed off. Although these undead did not embarrass them. At this time, Bai Yulan had used his authority to change the properties of Gabe's city, from an orc city to a city of the undead. The concentration of the breath of death in the city began to increase, and if the half-elves lived here for a long time, they would feel very uncomfortable. Everyone was trying to leave quickly. However, Gabe's city is still under martial law. NPCs are not allowed to enter and exit at will for the time being. Alan's fleet can leave the port, all thanks to the face of the deceased. When they heard that Alan was going to recruit sailors to return to Europe, the Europeans trapped in Gabe's went crazy. They strongly requested to join, and they would work for free. After all the sailors were recruited, many people were willing to buy tickets to return to Europe at a high price. They completely ignored the fact that Alan's fleet was actually transporting goods. Although many of them did not want to go to the Byzantine Empire, it was most important to escape from Gabe's as soon as possible. After arriving in Athens, it would be in time to find a way to go home. In this regard, Alan and the deceased both said that they were looking forward to it. It was rare to make a fortune from war. In order to make room for the guests, Xiaoming had to take back some of the goods. At the same time, the deceased also joined the fleet as a guard hired by Alan, responsible for the security of the fleet during its voyage in the Mediterranean. The Chamber of Commerce and the guards were temporarily handed over to the city lord by Yulan for management. The deceased followed Alan's merchant fleet and went straight to Athens, Greece. Waving his sleeves, he left without a trace of cloud. After Alan left, Bai Yulan was excited to take over the 300 level 4 bone dragons. Even if he couldn't get them, he would play with them in his hands for a while. Unexpectedly, when he arrived at the military camp, he saw that not only did he not see the 300 bone dragons, but also the other 500 level 4 flying skeleton soldiers were gone. There were only 1,002-4 level skeleton cavalrymen strolling around in the barracks. This made Bai Yulan depressed and very strange. He didn't see these undead soldiers boarding the ship, and he didn't even see them flying into the sky. How could they disappear? Could it be that the accused was sold out in just one day? This prodigal thing. When he comes back, I must scold him. In fact, the city lord was completely wrong. He thought that there were no treasures or abilities that could store a large number of troops in the main game. Naturally, he didn't expect that the accused actually brought the bone dragon and the flying skeleton soldiers with him. Indeed, the main game of Magic Planet is very strict in this regard. Even Xiaoming's spatial abilities Guangmingding and Kunlun were affected. Troops cannot be stationed when used in the main game. But there is one ability that the game cannot interfere with, that is the ability of the underworld. Quafu Underworld is not restricted by this rule. However, the death atmosphere inside Quafu Underworld is extremely strong, and it is difficult for other races in the game to last long if they are put into the underworld. After all, these are soldiers in the game. Compared with creatures in the real world, their realness is lower and their resistance to the breath of death is also weaker. Creatures in the real world can persist for a long time. Some races, such as the Zerg, can even survive in the underworld for a long time without being affected. Of course, this environment doesn't matter to the undead soldiers. Even the bone dragons and flying skeleton soldiers can get the nourishment of the breath of death, and maybe improve their strength. Xiao Ming brought them not for fighting, he was enough to fight alone. The reason for bringing the undead soldiers was for Hades, the king of the underworld. There is a slight chance that the accuser may deal with Hades during this trip to Europe. With these undead soldiers, whether as a gift or as evidence of one's status, it may help the accuser leave a good impression on Hades. In Xiao Ming's opinion, it is estimated that the gods of Athena and Hades are likely to be sealed. Anyway, according to Alan, these gods have not appeared for a long time. This time, I might activate the series of gods. These gods who have just been resurrected and are still a little weak may need sacrifices or faith. These undead soldiers have a high probability of playing a positive role in pleasing Hades. Of course, it is more likely that Xiao Ming is overthinking. Even if he brings them, it will be useless. But there is no loss, right? It is better to try. As for why he left 1,000 skeleton cavalry, it was because Xiao Ming did not want the Chamber of Commerce to completely lose its combat capability, so he had to leave enough strength. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 1598. Syracuse is a port city located in the central part of the Mediterranean Sea, at the southern tip of Italy, on the east coast of Sicily. It is a transportation hub connecting all directions. Its geographical location is very important and its business is relatively developed. Anyway, it is much more prosperous than Gabes. Historically, Sicily was occupied by the Byzantine Empire and the Arabs, but both later retreated, and is now ruled by the locals themselves. There was also a temple of Athena here, but it was later converted into a church. Magic Planet is a game after all. Although it will be magically modified with reference to the history of the Earth, it will never be completely consistent with history. For example, there are no elves, orcs, or sea tribes on Earth. Xiao Ming didn't know if there would be a temple of Athena in Syracuse. If so, he didn't know if it would work. He just planned to stop by and take a look. As far as Alan knew, even the Parthenon in Athens had fallen. Occasionally, some nostalgic locals went to offer sacrifices, but never received a response from the goddess. Other temples are in the same situation, even worse than the Parthenon, with very few worshippers. I have to say that the charm of the goddess is always much higher than that of the big men. Even the largest temple ended up like this, and one can imagine the plight of other temples. The temple of Athena in Syracuse had little chance of being effective. So the main purpose of this trip is to make money, because most NPCs buy tickets to Syracuse. After all, the distance from Gabes to Sicily is very short, only 1/4 of the distance from Gabes to Athens. Syracuse is also closer to most European countries. Most people get the most bang for their buck by buying a ticket here. Alan can also make quick money on the way. The speed of the medium-sized merchant ship that Xiao Ming brought out was pretty good, and there was no problem with such a short sea route. The fleet arrived in Syracuse in just a few hours. A large number of passengers disembarked, and many of them took a fancy to the goods on Alan's ship and discussed business with Alan. Xiao Ming ignored these things and ordered the informant to get off the boat and take to the streets. The business in Syracuse is quite prosperous. Merchants from various countries and races gather here with goods from all over the world, and the market is extremely lively. Unfortunately, the deceased was not interested in this, and specifically asked the locals to find out the whereabouts of the Temple of Athena. It took a long time to get the exact information from an elf. I have to say, the elves live a long time and know a lot of things. This elf NPC is probably hundreds or thousands of years old. Only then can we know such unpopular information. The key is that even at such an old age, he is still full of vitality and good-spirited, without even a wrinkle or gray hair on his face. Because the elves do not age, they still look young even before they die. Of course, Xiao Ming doesn't need to envy him. On the one hand, Xiao Ming's own lifespan is extremely long, far longer than that of the elves. It is not an exaggeration to say that he has the same lifespan as heaven and earth. On the other hand, Xiao Ming could feel that the elf had lost interest in most things. Because he has lived too long and has seen a lot, no situation can surprise him. Living is already quite boring. This is also the ending that elves, dragons, and other long-lived races will basically face. When they reach old age, they are almost not afraid of death. Unlike human beings, who only have a lifespan of 100 years and can live to learn. Throughout your life, even until your death, you may encounter new things. Generally not boring. Following the guidance of the elves, the informer came to the ruins of the Temple of Athena. As expected, there are only ruins left here. It was not converted into a church. The statue of Athena has long disappeared, and the stones of the temple built have been used for other purposes. Only the foundation of the entire temple remains with some traces. There was almost nothing left on the ground. It was the first time for Xiao Ming to see such complete ruins. But he had anticipated the situation. He took out a large amount of wood, stones, and other resources and activated his source energy to repair the temple. This is a golden finger that belongs exclusively to Xiao Ming. He will never be willing to give it up if he doesn't give it a try. As expected, the system gave a prompt. The complainant did not meet the basic conditions for repairing the ruins here, and the temple could not be repaired. Epsilon equals Omicron asterisk, alas, Xiao Ming sighed to express his understanding. This shows that the deceased must first go to the Parthenon to truly awaken the goddess Athena. The goddess is still sleeping, and in the worst-case scenario, she may have died. Of course her temple could not be built. Thinking on the bright side, this also means that no player has taken the lead yet, and he should be the first. You know, Xiao Ming feels that as long as players have a certain level of small universe, they can open a new professional saint warrior and awaken the goddess Athena. There is no need to reach such a powerful level. There must be such players. They can obtain the small universe from the reincarnation space, or they can obtain the small universe through the secret realm in the game. This condition is not difficult to achieve. The real difficulty is intelligence. They probably don't know about starting a new career. He would not have thought of going to Greece to awaken the goddess Athena. Xiao Ming learned this important information because he accidentally opened the 3 professions of Jedi Knight, full-time hunter, and Naruto. Moreover, even if other players knew about it, it would be difficult for them to go to Europe to grab Xiao Ming's business. For the time being, players are rarely able to leave the borders of China. But it's not absolutely impossible. Some players from big families and powerful forces can set the birth point of the second or third character to a foreign country. For example, Zhao Rui, who comes from the Song dynasty family, her third role came to Brunei in Southeast Asia. For another example, the researcher once encountered a player called Sleeve Hands World in Central and South America. So Xiao Ming is not completely relaxed. Now that the restoration of the Temple of Athena in Syracuse has failed, he is relieved a lot. However, he did not dare to delay any longer. After leaving a few parasites behind, he quickly returned to the dock. Alan's idea of taking a stroll in Syracuse was interrupted, and he took the time to pull anchor and head straight for Athens. What is there to see in Syracuse? The products Xiao Ming gave to Alan all came from the distant east. It's a shame to sell to Syracuse. This big business should be done in Athens, where commerce is more developed and there are more wealthy people. Trading in Athens not only made more money, but also instantly made Alan famous. At this stage, classmate Alan is Xiao Ming's white glove in the European region on the adventure map. With the help of such a legal identity, Xiaoming can reduce a lot of official troubles. Otherwise, if Xiaoming's game character wants to do business in Europe, there are still many tedious procedures to complete. It is estimated that a lot of exorbitant taxes and miscellaneous taxes will have to be paid. It's great to have white gloves and save everything. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhenshen. Chapter 1599. Alan's merchant fleet returned to Athens loaded with priceless goods, which should have been kept strictly confidential. Otherwise, it would inevitably attract the covetousness of various forces. This fleet should not have attracted customers. However, Alan was just a small businessman, with shallow eyes and insufficient experience in doing big business. Because of his greed for money, he carried a large number of passengers to the port of Syracuse. Many of them saw the goods in the merchant ship, and some chose to discuss business cooperation with Alan directly, which was more rational. After all, the forces that can come up with so many novel products at once, those who are interested feel that they need to be cautious and try to find out the bottom first. But there are also many people who are greedy for money. They don't consider so many things, and plan to rob him first and then talk about other things. There are many forces in this area, and there are many pirates of all sizes. Who can be sure that it was me who did it? With this mentality, there were three forces that wanted to attack Alan's merchant fleet. Two were pirates, and one was the navy of a certain country, temporarily playing a pirate. However, no fleet could appear in front of Alan. Their hostility was too obvious. Xiaoming could feel their presence from a long distance. We don't need to wait for others to fire the first shot. As long as the hostility is confirmed, the deceased can choose to strike first. This time, Xiaoming controlled his hands and feet a little, and only paralyzed all the enemies with the weakness virus, without taking a single life. This is not to forgive them out of softness. The three waves of enemies raised the pirate flag. After being poisoned by all the members, they couldn't even lower the pirate flag. They will be discovered by the patrolling navy of nearby countries and wiped out. As pirates, their fate will definitely not be good. During the voyage, passing the route between the Balkan Peninsula and Crete, Xiaoming felt a rather strange atmosphere on Crete, which seemed worth exploring. But now the overall situation is important. Awakening the goddess Athena and starting the Saint Cecilia profession is the top priority and cannot be distracted. Wait until things in Athens are done and talk about it on the way back. Athens is one of the oldest cities in Europe and even the world, and one of the commercial centers. Its history can be traced back to more than 1,000 years before Christ. It is known as the cradle of Western civilization. Athens is also the birthplace of European philosophy. It gave birth to a large number of historical greats such as Socrates and Plato, which have had a significant impact on European and even world culture. The name of the city comes from the legendary goddess of wisdom and war Athena. It is hard to imagine that people here would let the temple of Athena decline. In reality, this is naturally impossible. In the game, the production team deliberately forced this arrangement in order to add drama to Athena. A virtual game can shut up others. No one can compete with them. Players can play or not. Xiaoming is happy to see this kind of magic change. When Alan's fleet was about to arrive in Athens, the nearby maritime traffic had become crowded, with a large number of ships coming in and out. Not to mention medium-sized ships, large ships are everywhere, and even giant ships can be seen occasionally. Shuttled among these giants, Alan's fleet was not noticeable at all. Basically no one paid much attention to them. Just when Alan was handling various formalities at the dock, the deceased had quietly left the fleet and went deep into the city. Although Xiaoming was fearless in Gabes and Syracuse, he had to be more obedient when he arrived in Athens. In this city, there are definitely many 7th level A-level masters, and it is not impossible for 8th level S-level NPCs to appear. That strength is about the same as Xiaoming. Such a big city will naturally have high-level treasures and props, and Xiaoming dare not make trouble here casually. It just so happens that because of the developed business and large population here, the deceased, the undead wizard, walked on the street and no one paid much attention. After all, there are many undead people living in Athens. Everyone is a person who has seen the world, and a skeleton is not worth making a fuss about. Xiaoming likes this atmosphere very much, and he must take a good walk in Athens when he has time. Now, go straight to the temple without explanation. There are 3 hills in Athens. The Parthenon, dedicated to the goddess Athena, is located on the Acropolis Hill. The other 2 hills should have been built with other buildings. However, in the game, the Temple of Hades stands on the Lycabettus Hill, and the Temple of Odin stands on the Nymphus Hill. In addition, there is a Temple of Poseidon, the king of the sea, on the seashore near Athens. Of course, the king of the sea doesn't like to be on the mountain. It's already very respectful that it is not built on the seabed. The 4 big guys gathered in Athens, not one less. Aren't they afraid that they will fight each other? The creative team of the game is really good at playing, and they can do such unreasonable things. Of course, these 4 temples are quite dilapidated now. Only the Parthenon is barely better. As the saying goes, kings don't meet kings. Since Athens is the territory of the goddess Athena, Hades, and the king of the sea should not build temples here. Odin is even more irrelevant and does not belong to the same mythological system. However, these 4 temples appeared in Athens at the same time. This gave Xiaoming confidence in starting a career like Saint Seiya. Need I say more? These 4 gods command Saint Seiya, God Seiya, Sea Seiya, and Hades Seiya respectively. They are all warriors who use microcosm. If you say that they are not gathered here because of the story of Saint Seiya, no one can believe it, right? Xiaoming happens to have 4 roles among the 4 types of fighters. The diver is a sea creature, corresponding to the sea fighter. The informant is a ghost, corresponding to the Hades fighter. It's just too much. As for the explorer and the researcher, they are both human beings, so there is not much difference between who is a saint and who is a god fighter. The only thing Xiaoming needs to consider now is which temple should be chosen to activate first. What should be the order of activation? This kind of thing may have a far-reaching impact, or it may not make any difference at all. Xiaoming thought about it for a while and decided to act according to the plot of Saint Seiya. According to the order of the story development, visit Athena, Odin, Poseidon, and Hades in turn. I don't know if there will be any additional benefits. By the way, the main plot of the Saint Seiya world that Xiaoming personally experienced did not happen due to his interference. Therefore, at the beginning, Xiaoming did not know the order of the 4 fighters' appearance. He could only be sure that the saints would be the first to appear. The Hades fighters were powerful and would probably be responsible for the end, only the order of the god fighters and the sea fighters was difficult to judge. But aren't there other reincarnations? Later, Xiaoming learned the general direction of the main plot through communication with others. Now he can follow the order of the script. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhenshen. Chapter 1600. The Acropolis in reality is only 156 meters above sea level, which is a bit short and poor. The game designer felt that it was not spectacular enough, so he made some changes. So, the mountain in front of the researcher is 500 or 600 meters high, majestic and spectacular. There are dozens of peaks in front, behind, left and right, and the highest peak guarded in the center is the location of the Parthenon. The mountain is full of broken walls covered with grass and moss. Now there are only a few broken stone palaces in the temple, which are still standing firmly. but they are very inconspicuous under the shade of countless towering trees around. The Doric stone columns are covered with various vines. Under the afterglow of the setting sun, it looks tragic and desolate. There is a mountain road leading directly from the foot of the mountain to the Parthenon. It can be seen that the road was paved with bluestone slabs, and there were a large number of sculptures on the roadside, praising the Olympian gods. Among them, the most praise Athena. Now, only 1 out of 10 sculptures on the roadside survives, and those that remain are almost intact. Some are missing arms or legs. Most are only halfway there. Half of the bluestone slabs on the road may have been dug up, and half are buried deep in the soil. Only a few are exposed on the ground, reminding players of the glory of this road in the past. The researcher walked towards the top of the mountain step by step along the vaguely visible road, while thinking about whether there is a problem with his plan. Because the first temple Xiaoming planned to worship was the Parthenon dedicated to Athena. The only suitable candidates were the 2 human characters, the explorer and the researcher. But since the explorer's first combat profession is already a Jedi Knight, using him to awaken Athena and become a Saint Seiya, I wonder if it will cause dissatisfaction from the goddess. It is not possible to take such a risk for the first time. Therefore, this task fell on the researcher. The researcher is still quite active on the strategic map. Originally, he was on the North American continent, helping the natives fight against Western colonists. Later, he felt that this job was more suitable for the dead, so the dead went to North America to replace the researcher. The researcher himself sailed out to Europe. One of the main purposes was to come to Athens to activate the new profession. However, the researcher on the strategic map was still sailing on the sea. Because his troops were quite strong and his fleet seemed powerful, he had not encountered any obstacles in the Atlantic Ocean. After fighting with wild monsters many times, the researcher's primary pirate admiral skin was upgraded from level 8 to level 12, and the strategic level had reached the full level of level 1 and level 20. It's just that he is at sea and can't receive promotion tasks for the time being. On the adventure map, the researcher has been staying in the city of Tanshan, making various puppets for a long time and practicing technology, including the puppets of the alchemist and the puppets of Naruto. Intelligent programs are most suitable for this kind of time-consuming work. If they do other tasks, they often don't perform well because they don't know how to adapt. The researcher has reached level 3. The level 3 puppets he made can become the main cannon fodder force of Tanshan City, and the demand is huge. Therefore, the high-level elves in Tanshan City have been issuing relevant tasks in the city hall. Any player can accept it. But in fact, there are not many players who can come here, and even fewer alchemists. Among them, the only player who can make level 3 puppets in batches is the researcher. These tasks are actually specially prepared for the researchers. The experience and money rewards are quite rich. The level of the researcher has been rising rapidly. However, even so, the current adventure level of the researcher is only level 35, which is still a short distance from the promotion to level 4. With the experience of level 5, if there is a chance to do a difficult task, maybe you can rush up at once. In this way, you can change your job to Saint Seiya with a level 4 posture. The premonition of the Force told Xiaoming that it would be better than changing your job with a level 3 posture. The specific reason is unknown. Of course, the difference is not particularly large. Xiaoming spent 2 days operating the researcher to search everywhere in the city of Tanshan, but unfortunately he still couldn't find a task that could give level 5 experience. He only upgraded the researcher to level 35. There was no way. Tanshan City was located in the Hawaiian Islands, and this terrain restricted the appearance of large-scale tasks. The entire archipelago was under the control of the elves. Even if they wanted to go to war with their neighbors, they couldn't find any neighbors nearby to attack. So, the dead opened the portal, and the researcher ran to Athens to try his luck. In this city that is no less than the capital of a country, it should be possible to find a suitable task. Of course, because the researcher has no legal identity in the city, he has to be careful to avoid the city defense army. It is more difficult to get a task. What he never expected was that the force actually guided him to go directly to the Parthenon. In other words, it is very likely to encounter tasks with extremely high experience values here. So the researcher followed the induction of the force and climbed up Mount Acropolis step by step along the road. Not far from the top, Xiaoming finally felt the key clearly. In a rocky wasteland, there is a lot of strong smell of death, gathering and not dispersing. No living creatures can survive nearby, let alone flowers, birds, fish, insects, or even bacteria and viruses. It is a complete dead zone. This Gata is not the temple of Hades, the god of the underworld. There is only one explanation for the presence of such a strong smell of death. This place must be closely related to the Cancer Gold Saint. Because among all the saints under the command of the goddess Athena, only Cancer has been dealing with the underworld, and the fighting style is also related to the underworld. Xiaoming knows it very well, because he experienced the world of Saint Seiya that year, and by chance, Death Mask was resurrected and became the third guard among the insect humans under his command. After long-term contact, Xiaoming, as the king of the underworld, has already learned most of Death Mask's moves. He also feels very familiar with the power of Cancer. No wonder he is attracted. But how to do it specifically? Xiaoming subconsciously deviated from the road based on his feelings and walked step by step to the center of the death breath. At this time, it seems that something should be done to stimulate certain reactions. So Xiaoming mobilized the small universe with the body of the researcher and sent out the trick of the Cancer Gold Saint Corpse Chi. It is impossible not to recognize your own tricks, right? Sure enough, the system responded immediately. The character researcher has obtained a special inheritance opportunity. Please learn a special ability here. At this stage, the system's announcements are all vague. There is no mention of keywords such as microcosm, Saint Seiya, goddess, cancer, etc. Only the word special is used. The researcher understood the meaning, sat cross-legged on the ground, and carefully comprehended it.